We're having today an Amiga 500. The most common form of loading data on these is through the floppy disk. The customers sent this one in because their floppy disk drive doesn't work and it doesn't load anything. Let's just take a quick look. So this is the customer's console. It could definitely do with some retro brighting, but it's not come in for that. It's come in because the floppy drive doesn't work right. If we take a look, we've got the kickstart on screen, and the next step is to try and boot it into Workbench. So we insert the floppy disk. We'll see here when the drive's active, and you can see it basically loads, fails, and repeats. When inside, we can access the floppy disk quite easily here, and this has just got tape on. I think this is probably from the factory. It looks quite old. And with the tape peeled back, we can remove the top. And in order to work on it, let's just remove it from the computer to start with, and let's just try and service this first. Starting with the most obvious, which is a physical clean to remove all the dust that's inside of the drive. Next up, we want to pay attention to these switches here, which detect when the disk is physically in and whether it's write protected or not. The same thing for that, just some IPA. Spray on and actuate the switches. The pickup heads are under here, so this reads the bottom of the disk, and on top of this, on the underside, you can see that one there on the top reads the top of the floppy disk. We just give them both a gentle wipe with IPA. And one thing you don't want these heads doing is having magnetism. So we can use this active powered demagnetizer. We just want to rub it over the two pickup heads to completely demagnetize them. Next, we want to make sure the sensors are in the right position. So when the disc first gets inserted, it's detected with these switches. Once it detects a disc, these go down. The motor here spins until this moves back. And what it's looking for is the home position on sector 0. All drives are different, but this one you can see, this metal arm here moves back until it goes over this black reed switch here to detect where home is. So when that black switch detects the presence of this metal, it knows it's hit home, and that's sector 0. Now, if we need to change the sector 0 position, we have to loosen this wheel here for this motor and gently turn this and rotate it within one full rotation of this movement. So this is the final adjustment you might have to do for accurate positioning inside the sector. We leave that till very last. And one other check we can do is the speed of the spindle motor. So this big motor here that spins the floppy disk should be spinning at a very specific rate. Usually there's a potentiometer, and I'm going to guess it's this one in this case, where we can finally adjust the speed. We'll come back to both of these adjustments if the basic service hasn't worked. But let's just see how far our basic service has got firstly. So that's further than before. So it's loaded some and then failed, but you will notice I also have on this disc a cross because this doesn't always read. So let's just try push over instead. This one usually loads on most drives, so if this one fails, then we know the drive's still too far out of alignment. But it's getting the header, so we've got somewhere. This brings us then to the alignment for sector 0. Because we're going to rotate this motor, which is done by loosening these two screws, I've gone ahead and engraved a line across the metal here, so when we start moving it left and right, we can gauge where the original position was, because once you lose that position, you'll have no reference. And you can see that now freely moves. So we just want the slightest movement. Unfortunately, the movements left or right, even slightly, either don't help at all and we get the exact same message, or it makes it worse and it doesn't even seek. So it looks like the sector 0 position is already pretty much perfect. So we're down to now the last resort, which is tuning the spindle motor speed. We can use a tachometer and monitor the spin cycle, but if we see the potentiometer, it's only got a certain range and it will be close to within spec. We can just mark this where it already is or keep a mental note and just tune by eye for now. and tuning to almost what's 180 degrees of the starting position gets us now at least to here without erroring out, and I believe it does almost load, so very close to a full load there. And given that we're getting so close now to a load, so if we let this load up, you can see it's successfully loading one after the other nice and fast, and then hangs here. What this might be is the top and bottom of the disc, so there's an underside and an upper side. So if we just turn off a minute, lift out, you can see this has also got a cross on, so I know this struggles on some systems. But we have the upper head here, as we saw, and the lower head under there. What can happen is your upper head could be, say, positioned here, and the lower head positioned here. Not that much extreme, but this being slightly too far forward or backwards. Let's try taking a single layer disc of something I've copied myself and know works. Let's just insert this in, turn on, and if the upper side is okay, this should read successfully when we turn on. You can see it's got straight to that. Let's press F1, loading up X copy, and this is only on the top, and there you go. So it looks like it can read part of the disc. Now we're in X copy. Let's just go and click check disk. And what we can use this for now is to check both the upper and lower side for read errors. So this will allow us to see, say the upper works all the way, but the lower fails, or the lower works and the upper fails, will have a misalignment of those two heads. Otherwise, this can just be used to check if the discs are valid based on the current position. So now we can get into X copy. It gives us a much better way to visually check and align these discs. And you can see X copy read fine. Now let's just try one I've used on a previous video recently, which is this disc. And let's check that disc as well. And if this reads successfully, then it might well be now fully aligned. And obviously, just my discs with the cross on might just well be bad discs. I'll leave them with the cross on, just in case they work in some drives and not others. But once I've had enough computers in to prove whether the discs do fail all the time, I'll know they're definitely bad. So this one, as you can see, seems to read all the way through fine. So I think this disc might now be fully aligned. To prove that, let's just reboot and see if that now boots. And there we go, it's now asking us for the first disc. So we know that's good. And we can see the Amiga format disc has loaded successfully. So one of the demo discs I have. And there's the friendly match kicking off. So now let's try a copied rough and tumble disc. And that's loaded pretty much as quick as I'd expect. And here's the rough and tumble that you guys know, that I'm really bad at playing, especially with one hand. And there we go, so we're in game. And that's how you align floppy disks on an Amiga. You can see every step really helped. The physical clean initially got it to actually attempt to load, and then the alignment of the spindle and the speed of the spindle really helped for the final pieces. Also, having known discs in certain states, ones that you know fail and ones that you know work, help to prove your alignment. We could obviously use more specialised tools. I do own them all, so we could use a tachyometer, we could use an oscilloscope, but you don't really need to. You can do this without all special tools. So that's another one fixed. I'll give this one a service for the customer, play some rough and tumble, and on to the next.